All right, notice here, I'm going to find the slope, and I'm going to find it from 2 points, and observe that I don't have a graph, right? And sometimes we have points like, look how big this is. That would be a pretty big graph. So sometimes we have that kind of situation. Sometimes we just don't have access to a graph. But if we have slope from 2 points, here is how we find it. We can either use this idea of change in y over change in x, okay? And that's actually the same thing as the slope formula, right? So our slope, our m, equals the change in y over the change in x, okay? And the way that we can also look at this is using the slope formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. This way of thinking about it is shorter, but this way is going to be more comfortable for a lot of you. I'm going to show you both. Okay, so I'm going to actually start with the slope formula, which is definitely the longer way. I want everyone to be comfortable with it. And then I'll show you how this is kind of the same thing, but just a little bit shorter. Okay, so here is the formula. It's m equals, okay, and you should have this memorized. This is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, here's what this looks like. This is our first point, point number 1, x and y. So this is x1, this is y1. This is our second point. This is x and y, so this is x2, and this is y2. Okay, so when I use this formula, what I'm doing is I'm just plugging in these 4 numbers. So y2 is 10 minus y1, oh, that's negative 2. Okay, x2 is negative 11 minus, look, there's a minus sign here, 19. Okay, notice here there was a minus sign from the formula, and this was also a negative 2. Okay, so I brought both minuses. Let's see what happens. This minus a negative, this becomes plus, right? This becomes 10 plus 2, which is 12. This becomes negative 11 minus 19. That's 11 negatives. 19 more negatives. That's a total of 30 negatives. I look at this and I can actually reduce this, right? I realize both of these numbers can be divided by 2. They can both be divided by 3. If I'm really good, I'll realize they can both be divided by 6, and I'll do it in one step. More likely what happens is you look at these numbers and you ask, can both of these be divided by the same number? And you say, oh yeah, you divide by 2, and then maybe you get 2 over 15, maybe you get 6 over 15, excuse me, and then you realize, oh, they can both be divided by 3. But if you catch this in one step, 12 divided by 6 is 2, 30 divided by 6 is 5, and look, this is a positive divided by a negative, so that's a negative. So this slope is negative 2/5. Okay, that's the slope formula. Now, in terms of the shorter way, the change in y over the change in x, it's actually the same as the slope formula, but here's what it would look like. The change in y is the change from 19 to negative 11. So what's the, oh, sorry, those are x's. Ooh, I'm like confusing myself here, okay? The change in y is the change from negative 2 to 10. So what was that change? Well, to go from negative 2 up to 10, I would have to go up 2 to make it to 0, and then up 10 more to make it to 10. So that would be up 2, then up 10, that's up 12. Look, here it is. Okay, that's the change in x. Okay, if I want the change in y, that's from 19 to negative 11. So I'd have to go down 19, then down another 11, right? Down 19 to 0, down another 11 to negative 11. So that would be a total of down 30. Look, down 30, negative 30. So notice I just did that. Like if your mental math is good like that, then you can kind of skip this step. But for a lot of you, this is going to be the easier way to do it. Totally up to you. It's the same. It's the same idea, just different ways of kind of doing the math. All right? Let's look at another one. Okay, so slope formula again. This is x1, y1, x2, y2. So m equals y2 minus y1. So y2 minus y1. x2 minus x1. Okay, 3 minus 3 is 0. 5 minus 17 is negative 12. Okay, let's look. If I was going to do change in y over change in x, it'd be the same. Look, the change in y, 3 to 3. Oh, that's no change, 0 change. The change in x, oh, I went from 17 down to 5. What is that? Oh, that's down 12. Okay, so same idea, just different way of doing it. Okay, now what's 0? This is 0 divided by 12. Oh, 0 divided by 12 is 0. Okay, that's my answer. This slope is 0. Okay, and you can picture this. If I were to graph these points on the graph, look, this would be 5, 3, and this would be 17, 3. That's a horizontal line, right? That has a slope of 0. okay? So remember, if you end up with 0 over a number, that equals 0. Now, if you end up with a number over 0, that does not equal 0. Remember, that equals undefined. This would be a situation where you actually had a vertical line, right? Okay, so just remember, 0 over a number you equals 0, and then if you get the 0 on the bottom though, that would be an undefined slope, right? Gonna be your turn to go ahead and try it out. Remember, the first thing you do, label x1, y1, x2, y2. Don't skip that step of labeling. It makes your life a lot easier.